I've seen it too many times to count. A man walks into my office. He's 68, maybe 72, still upright, still sharp in the eyes, but something's missing. He tells me, "Doc, I'm not sick, but I don't feel right, like I'm slowly fading." And he's not wrong. Let me say this. Up front, what I'm about to share is not about fantasy. It's not about taboo. It's about function. It's about your right to feel alive in your own skin. I'm Dr. Mark Hyman, MD. For over 30 years, I've worked with thousands of men navigating the challenges of aging, many who feel like their bodies are betraying them, but can't quite explain how or why. I'm a practicing physician, founder of the Ultra Wellness Center, and senior advisor for the Cleveland Clinic's Center for Functional Medicine. I've written 14 best-selling books, but what matters most to me is the real transformation I witness in my patients when they start remembering they're still men, still whole, still powerful. And yet, too many of them stop touching themselves. They don't say it out loud. It just slips away. And when it does, their body begins to change quietly. Hormones drop, circulation slows, sleep becomes restless, and perhaps most haunting, they stop feeling like themselves. This isn't just a theory, it's biology, it's psychology, it's human. And today, I want to walk you through exactly what happens when a man over 60 stops masturbating. Not to shame you, but to wake you up. Because the man you used to be, he's still in there. But he needs you to come back to him. Let me show you how. His name was Frank, a 71-year-old retired Air Force mechanic. Strong hands, sharp mind, and a quiet pride in how he'd always taken care of himself. But lately, something had shifted. "Doc," he told me, "I'm waking up 4, sometimes 5 times a night just to pee. I can't hold it like I used to. The stream's weak, and I never feel empty." Most people would chalk that up to aging. But I've seen this before, and it's rarely just aging. You see, the prostate isn't just some passive gland. It's alive. It contracts, expands, produces vital fluid. But when you stop ejaculating, when you stop releasing regularly, that fluid builds up, thickens, stagnates. It's like a stream that no longer flows. It becomes a swamp. That's when inflammation sets in, swelling, congestion, and over time, it presses against your urethra, making it harder and harder to fully empty your bladder. That's what was happening to Frank. The medical term is BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia, and it affects nearly half of men over 60. But here's the part most doctors never say out loud. Regular ejaculation can help prevent it. Yes, masturbation, a few times a week, can literally reduce your risk of this incredibly common condition. Frank was shocked. "You mean that's all it takes," he asked, "to stop waking up 5 times a night?" I nodded. That and listening to your body again. He followed through. A few weeks later, he returned to my office looking rested. "Doc, I'm sleeping like I did 20 years ago. I didn't know it could make that much of a difference." It does, because when you stop using a part of your body, it forgets how to work. But when you wake it back up, it remembers. I met Jason during a community health seminar in Austin. He was in his late 60s, a retired architect with decades of sharp thinking behind him. But that day, his voice wavered as he pulled me aside. "Dr. Hyman," he said quietly, "I can't focus like I used to." I walk into a room and forget why I'm there. I start talking, and my words disappear. I don't feel like me anymore. He thought it was early dementia, maybe genetics. But I asked him something different. Jason, when was the last time you felt sexually alive, even just by yourself? He looked away. It's been years, he said. I figured that part of me was done. But here's the thing. Our brain is wired for connection, even if it's just with ourselves. During climax, whether with a partner or alone, the brain floods with dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. These aren't just feel-good chemicals. They're your brain's fuel. They improve memory, sharpen focus, calm anxiety, and stimulate blood flow. They're natural protectors against the mental fog of aging. Without that stimulation, the brain slows not all at once, but bit by bit. You forget names. You lose your train of thought. You hesitate to speak because you're unsure of your own mind. And as testosterone levels drop from disuse, confidence fades right alongside clarity. Jason started to understand. He didn't need pills. He needed reconnection with himself. He made a simple commitment to treat his own body as worth engaging again. Not for fantasy, but for function. Within weeks, the fog started to lift. He began to write again, joined conversations, even picked up his sketchbook after a decade. You gave me my mind back, he said. No, I told him. You gave it back to yourself. Not long ago, I sat with Raymond, a 73-year-old widower from upstate New York, neatly dressed, soft-spoken, always polite. A man who had clearly lived with discipline and dignity. But when I asked how he'd been feeling emotionally, he hesitated. Then, with eyes fixed on the floor, he whispered, I don't feel much of anything anymore. Not sadness, not joy, just nothing. That kind of emotional flatline isn't rare in older men. We chalk it up to grief, to age, to slowing down. But what I've learned over and over is that emotional numbness is often a symptom of something else, disconnection from the body. You see, during orgasm, the brain doesn't just release dopamine. It unleashes oxytocin and endorphins, powerful chemicals that fight anxiety, regulate mood, and remind your nervous system you are alive. You can still feel. When men cut off that connection, whether out of shame, grief, or simply habit, the emotional rhythm of life dims. Sleep becomes restless. Conversations lose color. You stop calling friends, stop doing the little things you once enjoyed, and without realizing it, you start withdrawing from your own life. Raymond wasn't depressed in the clinical sense. He was disconnected. I gently encouraged him to try reconnecting, not with anyone else, just with himself. Slowly, mindfully, with compassion. A month later, he returned for a follow-up. His energy was lighter. His smile came more easily. He told me, it wasn't about sex. It was about remembering I'm still here, still human. That struck me hard because for so many men, this isn't about performance, it's about permission. Permission to feel, to heal, to be whole again. And the journey back often starts with one small moment of self-intimacy. He came in looking like a man carrying the weight of the world. Dennis was 70, a retired accountant from Michigan, and he looked exhausted, sunken eyes, slouched posture, voice barely above a whisper. Doc, he said, I fall asleep just fine. But every night around 2 a.m., I bolt awake and just stare at the ceiling. We ran all the standard tests, labs, sleep studies, even scans. Everything came back clean. No apnea, no neurological issues. But something was still wrong. So, I asked a question most doctors wouldn't. When was the last time you touched yourself intimately? He blinked. Years ago. He said, I just figured I was done with all that. But here's what Dennis didn't know, and what most men never hear. Your body has its own built-in sleep aid. During orgasm, it releases prolactin, oxytocin, and endorphins, chemicals that naturally quiet the mind and signal your nervous system. It's time to rest. These aren't theories. They're hardwired responses. Cortisol drops, muscles relax, heart rate slows, breathing deepens. You don't just fall asleep, you stay asleep. And your body heals in that deep restorative state. Without that release, especially for weeks, months, or years, your body forgets how to downshift. Sleep becomes fragmented. Rest feels shallow. And exhaustion becomes your new normal. I encouraged Dennis to reintroduce self-intimacy into his nightly rhythm, not as a chore, but as a gift to his body. 2 weeks later, he called me. Doc, he said, I slept through the night. First time in over a decade. It wasn't a miracle. It was biology. And it was his own body remembering how to take care of itself once he gave it the chance. Sometimes the medicine we're missing isn't in a bottle. It's in a moment of connection with ourselves. There was something unshakable about Walter when he first came to see me, a retired firefighter from St. Louis. He'd spent decades charging into burning buildings, saving lives. But now, at 74, he was battling something far more personal and invisible. Doc, he said, I can't stand for more than 10 minutes without this awful pressure in my lower back and hips, and sometimes I don't make it to the bathroom in time. He hated admitting that. You could see it in the way his jaw tightened. This was a man who'd always relied on his body, and suddenly it was failing him. But when we ruled out all the usual culprits, spinal issues, bladder infections, nerve damage, I asked him something different. Have you been sexually active? Even on your own? He looked confused. That hasn't been part of my life in years, he said. And that's when it clicked. You see, your pelvic floor, the web of muscles that supports your bladder, lower spine. And yes, your manhood doesn't just stay strong on its own. It needs activation, movement, purposeful contraction, and orgasm, even solo, provides just that. During climax, these muscles contract rhythmically. Blood rushes through the tissue. Nerves fire. Elasticity is maintained. It's physical therapy built into your biology. When that stops, the muscles weaken, leaks become common, mobility suffers, and men once strong and independent start carrying spare clothes, mapping out bathrooms, and slowly losing trust in their own bodies. Walter didn't need shame. He needed knowledge. I guided him through simple reconnection exercises, physical and intimate, and over time, that pressure eased. His strength returned. Most importantly, his confidence came back. Because for men like Walter, the real fear isn't aging, it's feeling powerless. But when you re-engage your own foundation, you take that power back, and that changes everything. It was a brutal winter in Minneapolis when George walked into my clinic. He was C8, a retired school bus driver, bundled in layers, but still looked pale, worn down. "Doc," he said, "I used to bounce back from a cold in a day or two. Now, every little thing knocks me down for weeks." He'd already tried everything: vitamins, elderberry, even weekly sauna sessions. But something deeper was off. After reviewing his clean labs and decent lifestyle, I asked gently, "George, are you still connecting with yourself physically? I mean?" He let out a soft laugh. "No, Doc, that part of me retired a long time ago." But what George didn't realize was that buried in that old habit he'd abandoned was a secret weapon, his immune system's forgotten ally. See, during orgasm, your body produces immunoglobulin A, an antibody that plays a major role in protecting your respiratory and digestive systems from viruses and bacteria. It's part of your frontline defense, but that's not all. Endorphins and oxytocin, released during climax, actively reduce inflammation, regulate stress hormones, and promote faster recovery when you're sick. George's body wasn't failing him. It was simply undernourished from the inside. I encouraged him to shift the way he viewed self-pleasure, not as something shameful or unnecessary, but as a form of immune support, like drinking water or taking a walk, something small, consistent, and vital. 2 months later, George returned. His color was better. His energy was steady. "Doc," he smiled, "I feel like I've woken something back up." He had. And what I want every man to know is this: you don't always need another supplement. Sometimes, you need to remember what your body already knows how to do. Reconnection can be the most natural immune booster of all. Aniyasam. I remember meeting Clarence on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in Portland. He was 77, a former high school principal, the kind of man who once commanded a room just by standing in it. But not that day. That day, his shoulders were slouched, his voice low, his eyes distant. "I don't feel like I live in this body anymore," he told me. "It's like I'm just renting space until my lease runs out." I've heard variations of that sentence more times than I can count, and every time, it hits me in the gut. Because what Clarence was describing wasn't depression, it was disconnection. When men stop touching themselves, something subtle but profound starts to happen. They stop engaging with their own reflection, stop dressing with care. Meals become routine, days blur together, and the body slowly becomes a stranger. Clarence didn't need medication. He needed a mirror and the courage to look back into it. I talked to him about self-intimacy, not in the way people assume, but as an act of reclamation, a way to remind his nervous system, I still live here. I still matter. With time, he agreed to try, not out of desire, but out of dignity. Weeks passed, then one day, he walked into my office wearing a pressed flannel shirt, clean-shaven, and standing a little taller. "You know," he said, "I started shaving every morning again. And I bought cologne. I haven't worn cologne in years." It wasn't about scent. It was about ownership. When you reconnect with your body, you stop fading from your own life. You start showing up for yourself. Clarence didn't reclaim his youth. He reclaimed something far more important: his presence. And that kind of return, that's how you begin to feel human again. Over the years, I've sat across from hundreds of men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, each one quietly wondering the same thing. Is this it? Is this the point where I stop feeling, stop caring, stop mattering. And I always tell them the truth. Only if you let it be, reclaiming your connection to your own body through something as simple, natural, and instinctive as self-intimacy isn't about chasing youth. It's not about fantasy or performance. It's about reclaiming your place in the world. When you touch yourself with intention, not out of habit or shame, but with presence, you're sending a message to your entire system. I'm still here. You reignite circulation, reset hormone balance, sharpen your mind, strengthen your core, boost your immune system, and most importantly, you reclaim your sense of self-worth. I once had a patient named Leonard, 82 years old, former Navy officer, widowed for over a decade. For years, he lived quietly, politely fading. One day, he told me, I didn't think I was allowed to feel that kind of aliveness anymore, like it belonged to another lifetime. But he gave himself permission. He started slow, mindful, gentle, and with time. He began to stand taller, laugh louder, dress with purpose, and look people in the eye again. You gave me permission. He told me. I smiled. No, Leonard, you gave it to yourself. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. You don't need a doctor's note. You don't need to explain it to anyone. Start small. Start quiet. But start. Because your body is listening, and it's been waiting for you to come home. If there's one thing I've learned after 3 decades in medicine, it's this. Most men don't break overnight. They fade. They fade from their bodies, their passions, their sense of identity slowly, silently, and no one talks about it. Not their doctors, not their families, not even their closest friends. It begins with small decisions. Skipping the morning shave, ignoring the mirror, stopping the little rituals that once anchored them in their manhood. And one of the quietest, yet most powerful decisions, letting go of self-touch. Not out of shame, but out of the belief that it no longer matters. But it does matter. Because the body remembers. The body keeps the score. And when you stop showing up for it, it slowly stops showing up for you. Your sleep weakens. Your mind fogs. Your bladder becomes unreliable. Your emotions dull. Your immunity falters. And beneath it all lies a growing belief. Maybe my time has passed, but I promise you it hasn't. You don't need to rewind the clock. You don't need to be the man you were at 25. What you need is to honor the man you are now. With all his scars, all his wisdom, all his quiet power, reconnecting with your body through gentle, mindful self-intimacy isn't about indulgence. It's about healing, reclaiming, returning. Because when you start to listen to your body again, something incredible happens. It listens back. So, wherever you are in your journey, start today with a breath, with a pause, with one small act that says, I matter. Because you do. And I'll be here, cheering you on every step of the way. Dr. Mark Hyman, MD.